The week I bought the house, I didn't tell anyone. Not my mother, not my sister, not the colleagues who had watched me eat meal prep chicken at my desk for 2 years. I drove to the title office alone, signed 47 pages in a room that smelled like carpet cleaner and recycled air, and the agent handed me a key on a plain metal ring. I sat in my car in the parking lot and held it in both hands. It was warm from her palm. That was the part that caught me. 6 months earlier, at my sister Brianna's Easter dinner, in front of 23 relatives who had all been told the same story about my life, my mother stood up and raised her wine glass and said, smiling, voice soft with the particular tenderness she reserved for public performances, "Nora's always been so capable. She'll figure it out." The room laughed. That polite kind. The kind that means everyone already agreed. By the time I opened my front door to my sister 2 weeks later, she was shaking too hard to unlock her own phone. I am a cybersecurity analyst. I have spent years training myself to find the one thing in a system that no one is supposed to find. It took me 31 years to run that same audit on my own family. If you've ever been the one they called strong, while they quietly took everything that was supposed to be yours, stay with me. I need you to hear all of it. My name is Nora. I was 28 years old when my Uncle Walt called me on a Tuesday night and told me what my mother had done with my college fund. Before that call, I had a story I believed about myself. The story went like this. I was the capable one, the one who figured things out, the one who didn't need as much. My mother had been telling that story for so long, and so convincingly, that I had mistaken it for a biography. She's always been so capable, said at family dinners in the tone you use to compliment a Swiss Army knife. Efficient, useful, not particularly precious. I was the daughter who had her own plan. My older sister Brianna was the one who needed things more reassurance, more money, more of Gloria's particular attention. The phrase was shorthand for a certain kind of management. Nora's fine, move on. I had believed it. I had even been proud of it, in the way you're proud of things you've convinced yourself you chose. I was 24 when I got my first real job title, cybersecurity analyst at a mid-size firm downtown. Salary $68,000. Student loan payment $1,400 a month. I kept a spreadsheet on my phone. 3 columns: income, savings, target. The target column had a number that felt like a dare. I adjusted it every month. Small increments. The way you move a weight up one notch when you finally stop shaking. That spreadsheet was the first thing that was entirely mine. No one knew about it. No one asked. Brianna had bought her house at 26. 4 bedrooms. Good school district. My mother had told everyone the same story. Brianna saved up. She was always smart with money. Said the way you say something true without hesitation, without the small catch and the voice that comes when you're covering something. I believed that story too. The night before Uncle Walt's call, I was sitting cross-legged on the floor of my studio apartment, 540 square feet. One window that rattled when trucks passed outside. A kitchen faucet that dripped on a 3-second cycle no matter how hard I cranked the handle. I was debugging a firewall configuration for a client presentation. The faucet dripped. I didn't look up. I had a 7-year-old student loan with a balance that still read like a verdict. I had a spreadsheet no one knew about. And I had a story about myself that was about to be dismantled by a phone call from a man who had been holding a secret for 13 years because he couldn't carry it alone anymore. The streetlight outside my window flickered once and held. I didn't know it yet, but the target column in my spreadsheet was about to mean something completely different. The phone rang at 9:40 on a Tuesday. I almost didn't pick up. Uncle Walt never called. We texted on birthdays sometimes. He was my mother's older brother, quiet, careful, the kind of man who thought before he spoke, and sometimes thought so long that the moment passed and he said nothing at all. Not that night. Nora, his voice sounded like he'd been pacing. I've been going back and forth about this for a long time. I can't carry it anymore. What, Uncle Walt? A long pause. I could hear him breathing. Your mother didn't lose your college fund. She withdrew it. All of it. $42,380. The March you turned 18. The faucet dripped. 3-second cycle. I didn't say anything. I was at the bank. I watched her sign the withdrawal form. I told her it was wrong. She told me to mind my own business. Then she didn't speak to me for 2 years. The money went straight into her joint account with your father. 2 weeks later, Brianna closed on her down payment. I slid off the couch onto the kitchen floor. Cold tile on the backs of my legs. The The phone pressed against my ear so hard it hurt. I didn't cry. Something behind my ribs just went quiet, like a pilot light going out. Example 1. What the story had always been. When I was 18, 2 weeks before my freshman year, my mother sat me down at the kitchen table. Her voice was soft the way it gets when she's delivering bad news she's already rehearsed. "Sweetheart, your college fund. It didn't survive the market. It's gone. I'm so sorry." She held me while I cried. Then she helped me fill out federal loan paperwork the next morning, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I remember being grateful for how calm she was, how practical. That was the story I carried for 10 years. The market. Bad luck. Nobody's fault. Meanwhile, Brianna had her house at 26. My mother described it every time. She saved up. She's always been smart with money. The same words, the same easy certainty. I believed her. She was my mother. She had sat with me at the kitchen table and held me while I cried over money she had already spent. She's always been so capable. That phrase had been a compliment. I had worn it like something earned. My mother had spent it on Brianna's kitchen, then praised Brianna for having one. Example 2. The family dinners. There was a Thanksgiving at Brianna's house the year I turned 27. The dining table sat 14, and my mother moved through that room like she had designed it herself. She pointed out the light fixtures to Aunt Patrice. She ran her hand along the kitchen island for Cousin Dennis. She did everything except hang a sign that said, "This is what success looks like." I sat at the corner between Uncle Walt and a cousin I saw once a year. My mother's voice carried across the table without effort. She never lowered it. "Nora's still renting that little studio. Bless her heart. That tech thing she does, it's so unpredictable. I worry." Patrice glanced at me. I smiled. Then Brianna, from the head of the table, tilted her head at me the way people tilt their heads at sick animals. "Hey, Nora, you want me to ask around at the brokerage? Real estate is way more stable than whatever you're doing." "I'm fine, Brianna. I'm just trying to help." My father cut his turkey into very small pieces. He didn't say a word. After dinner, I offered to help with dishes. Brianna waved me off. "You're a guest," she said it kindly. But the subtext was clear. This is my kitchen in my house, which I own. The kitchen that my education had paid for. That night, scrolling through my phone in the car before I drove home, I found a family group chat for Christmas planning. Everyone was in it. Everyone except me. I opened the spreadsheet, adjusted the target column, adjusted nothing else. She's always been so capable. It meant she doesn't need the group chat. Example 3. The birthday that wasn't. Brianna's birthday in March. Gloria drove out with a layered cake she'd made from scratch cream cheese frosting. 3 hours of work. She'd booked a restaurant. She'd organized a family brunch at her own house the Sunday after, with the cousins and the aunts and the particular warmth that comes from being the center of a room. My birthday in October, a card arrived 2 days late. Inside, a grocery store gift card for $25. A note in my mother's neat cursive. "Thinking of you, sweetheart. You're so independent, I never know what you need." She signed it with a small heart. I put the card in my junk drawer. I didn't tell anyone. I remembered something then. When I was 9, my mother stayed up until midnight helping me build a papier-mâché model of the solar system for school. She'd painted the rings of Saturn with a tiny brush while I slept. I'd woken up to find it finished on the kitchen table. Perfect and slightly lopsided in a way that made it feel more real. I used to look for that woman in the face of the one who signed birthday cards 2 days later. I stopped finding her sometime around the time I turned 23. That night, the studio window rattled as a truck went past. I sat in the dark for a while after it faded. The faucet dripped in the kitchen 3-second cycle. Same as always, and I didn't get up. After the call, I ran the math. 42,000 withdrew the March one turned 18. With conservative growth over 13 years, that fund would have been worth close to $55,000. My mother used my future to buy my sister a kitchen. That's the sentence I kept coming back to. Simple, cold, true. She took the money my grandmother saved from her Social Security checks, told me it was gone, watched me take out loans I'd spend a decade repaying, and then handed it to Brianna for a down payment and told everyone Brianna had saved up. She didn't just take the money. She built a story around why I deserved losing it. I understood something at that moment. Confrontation gives liars a stage. I had spent 13 years watching my mother redirect, deny, and reframe. I knew exactly how a confrontation with Gloria Whitmore ended. She cried, The family rallied. I became the difficult one. The narrative closed around her again, airtight. The only thing that breaks a narrative like that is a fact she can't redirect. So at 2 in the morning, I opened the spreadsheet. I adjusted the savings column upward by $200 a month. I closed the laptop at 3:15, set my alarm for 6, went to sleep. There was one person I trusted at work, Lena, VP of Threat Intelligence, 54 years old, silver bob, reading glasses she wore on a chain like a librarian who could also dismantle your network in 12 minutes. I didn't tell her about my family. I just asked a question. Lena, what does it take to move up here? She looked at me over those glasses. You're already doing the work, Nora. You just need to stop being invisible. She pushed a file across the desk. A proposal for an enterprise security audit biggest client, a regional hospital chain. The previous team lead had quit mid-project. This is yours if you want it. Ugly, tight deadline. But if you land it, people above me will know your name. I took the file. My mother called the following Sunday. Sweetheart, I ran into Patrice at the store. She mentioned a landlord with some affordable units. Shall I get the number? I gripped my phone. I'm not looking for a new place, Mom. Oh, I just thought you mentioned your rent went up. I didn't mention that. Well, someone did. After she hung up, I opened Facebook. Aunt Patrice had messaged me 4 days earlier. Hey, honey. Your mom said you're looking for something cheaper. I know a guy. Uncle Dennis. Nora. No shame in downsizing. Cousin Laura. Your mom told my mom you're in a tough spot. Thinking of you. 7 messages. 7 relatives. All carrying the same story, Gloria Whitmore's version of my life, distributed like a press release. I scrolled to the bottom, closed Facebook, opened the spreadsheet, updated the target column, didn't change anything else. Easter arrived the way Pacific Northwest Aprils do, cold in the morning, bright by noon, the kind of sky that couldn't decide between rain and mercy. I walked in wearing a simple navy blouse and jeans. No jewelry. I had decided one thing before I drove over. I was not going to say anything today. I was going to plant one seed and leave. My mother found me within 3 minutes. Nora, you look thin. Are you eating? She poured herself a glass and began the tour. Brianna just had the living room repainted Pharaoh and Ball. She picked the shade herself. Those floors are original oak. The deck extension was entirely Brianna's idea. Every sentence a ribbon tied around Brianna's life, presented to the audience for applause. Craig appeared beside me with a plate of deviled eggs. Brace yourself, he said under his breath. Your mom's been rehearsing the toast since Thursday. After the meal, everyone drifted into the living room. My mother stood in the center, wine glass raised, glowing like a woman who had prepared this exact moment. I just want to say a few words. She looked around the room. Brianna, thank you for hosting, for opening this beautiful home. She swept her hand wide. This is what hard work looks like. The room applauded. My mother smiled. Then she turned. And Nora. Her voice shifted into that register, the soft one. The one that sounds like compassion but works like a credit check. Honey, we're all rooting for you. One day you'll get there. She raised her glass slightly higher. She's always been so capable. She'll figure it out. A few people laughed, the uncomfortable kind. Cousin Laura looked at her shoes. Uncle Walt, in his corner chair, set his coffee cup down on the end table without looking away from Gloria. Brianna leaned toward me from the next chair close enough that 5 or 6 people could hear. There's no shame in renting, Nora. We all start somewhere. Then Aunt Patrice reached over and touched my arm. Gloria told me you're looking for something cheaper. I know a wonderful landlord in Milford. The room got quieter. Heads turned. I'm not looking for a cheaper place, Patrice. Oh, honey, there's no shame in asking for help. I didn't ask. My mother's chin lifted. Your pride will be your downfall, Nora. And then perfectly timed, perfectly kind, in the way that only people who mean absolutely no harm can be devastating, Aunt Patrice added. At least you're being responsible and not buying beyond your means. Sweetheart, that takes real character. The room went quiet for a moment that lasted much longer than it should have. Patrice smiled at me, warm and encouraging, completely unaware that she had just handed 23 relatives a picture of my life that wasn't mine. I set my glass down. I looked at the tablecloth. I didn't say a word. Not yet. In the hallway 10 minutes after the toast, Brianna caught me heading toward the coat closet. Patrice, Dennis, Cousin Laura, Craig, within earshot. Honestly, Nora. Her voice was half whisper, half performance. Are you jealous? It's okay to admit it. Jealous of what, Brianna? She waved her hand in a slow circle. The house, life, the fixed-rate mortgage, the kitchen. I looked at her, held her gaze for 3 full seconds. I'm sure you worked hard for all of it. Something flickered across her face. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. It means exactly what I said. She couldn't read me. That scared her more than any insult would have. She turned and walked back to the living room. I heard her pitched toward the far end. Mom, Nora's being weird again. My mother's sigh was audible from 20 feet away. She's always been the difficult one. In his corner chair, Uncle Walt's eyes moved from Brianna to Gloria and stayed there. Gloria noticed. For just a second, she met his stare. Then she turned and started clearing dessert plates as if she hadn't seen him at all. But I'd seen it. That tiny flinch. That half second where my mother remembered that Walt knew something she'd spent 13 years burying. I picked up my jacket. It was time. Actually, Brianna, my sister looked up. I'd love to have you over for tea next Saturday. I have a new place. The room shifted. Not dramatically. Just a small atmospheric change, like a barometric drop before a storm. A new place? Gloria frowned. What new place? I just moved. I kept my voice light. Nothing big. Saturday, 2 o'clock. I'll text you the address. Brianna looked at Gloria. Gloria looked at me. Nobody said anything. Sure, Brianna said slowly. I'll come. I walked through the front door and didn't look back. Behind me, she's probably renting another apartment. You know how she is. And from his corner chair, Uncle Walt was smiling. First time all night. For 11 months after the phone call, I worked 12-hour days, sometimes 14. I lived on coffee and meal-prepped chicken. I automated 40% of every paycheck into an index fund and pretended that money didn't exist. I stopped sharing anything about my job with my family, not because I was hiding it, but because every time I'd mentioned work before, my mother had waved it off like I was describing a hobby. That computer thing? Are they even going to keep you? The last time I told her about a project win, she changed the subject to Brianna's new patio furniture within 2 sentences. So I stopped. And nobody noticed. The hospital audit shipped on time, under budget. The client renewed for 3 years. Lena sent me a 2-line email the day the contract closed. Nice work. Come see me Monday. 12 months after that Tuesday night on the kitchen floor, Lena promoted me to team lead. Salary jumped to $112,000. New badge, new floor, new title. I didn't post about it. I didn't call anyone. I just opened the spreadsheet and updated the income column. Christmas came. Brianna hosted as always. $30,000, she announced to the room within 5 minutes of arrival. The remodeled living room. Shiplap wall, recessed lighting. A 75-inch TV mounted like a museum piece. My mother walked guests through like a docent. Then she found me by the drink table. So, still renting that little place? Yes, Mom. Well, at least you're saving, right? The warmth you offer strangers at a bus stop. Brianna appeared at her elbow. You know, Nora, if you'd listened to me about real estate years ago. I'm fine, Brian. You don't have to be defensive. My mother patted Brianna's arm. Your sister bought this kitchen herself. That's what a plan looks like, Nora. I sipped my water. Smiled. Said nothing. Later, in the hallway, Craig stopped me. 2 beers. It looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Hey, your mom talks a lot. He handed me a beer. Don't believe everything. He shrugged and walked away. It was the kindest thing anyone in that house said to me all night. 6 months later, everything accelerated. Lena promoted me again. Senior manager, salary $145,000 plus bonus. The index fund I'd been feeding for 2 years had nearly doubled. The spreadsheet, the one I'd built at 2 in the morning on a cold November floor, finally had numbers that meant something. I started driving through neighborhoods on Saturday mornings. Alone. Coffee in the cup holder. Phone on silent. I wasn't looking for a house. I was looking for a feeling. I found it on a hillside called the Ridgeline. 4 bedrooms. A wraparound deck that overlooked a valley. Floor-to-ceiling windows that turned the afternoon light amber and warm. Hardwood floors, stone fireplace, a kitchen island with space for 6. The listing price was $950,000. I ran the numbers twice, called my financial advisor, reviewed my portfolio, then I called the listing agent and made an offer. 3 weeks later, I sat in a title office and signed my name 47 times. They handed me a key on a plain metal ring. I walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and held the key in both hands, still warm from the agent's palm. I didn't call my mother. I didn't text Brianna. I didn't post anything. I drove to the house, unlocked the front door, and stood in the empty living room while the last bit of daylight slid down the far wall. I opened the spreadsheet, went to the target column, typed, "Okay," closed the app, put the phone in my pocket. The house was enormous and completely quiet. My footsteps echoed off the oak floors. Outside, the Douglas firs swayed in a wind that smelled like rain and cold earth. No rattling window, no 3-second drip, just wind and quiet and the sound of my own footsteps on floors I owned. I had a key. I had a deed. I had a reason to keep the door closed for a little while longer. I moved in on a Saturday, in early January. No moving truck, no fanfare. Just my Honda packed with whatever mattered. Clothes, laptop, a box of books, a cast iron skillet that had survived 4 apartments. The house was empty and enormous. Sunlight came through the living room glass and through long rectangles across the bare floor. I bought furniture slowly, a couch first gray, deep cushioned, big enough to disappear into, then a bed frame. A kitchen table I found at an estate sale in the east side, solid maple, slightly scarred. I liked the scars. They made it feel earned. One weekend I painted the wall behind the fireplace a warm white. 2 coats. Most of a Saturday. My arms ached. I didn't mind. The only person I invited over was Lena. She stood in the entryway, looked up at the vaulted ceiling, then out through the glass at the valley below. She was quiet for a long time. "This is stunning, Nora. Does your family know?" "Not yet." She studied my face. "You're not punishing them by hiding this. You're protecting yourself." "Maybe." I poured her a glass of wine. "Or maybe I just don't want to hand them another thing to ruin." That night, after Lena left, I unpacked a file box I'd been avoiding. On top, the deed. Beneath it, in a manila envelope, the document Uncle Walt had mailed me. I pulled it out and sat at the scarred maple table. Cascadia Federal Credit Union. A custodial account opened September 2004. Beneficiary: Nora Claire Whitmore. Custodian: Gloria A. Whitmore. Deposits every month, $50, then $100, then $200 as the years went on. By March of my senior year, the balance read $42,380. Then a single line: withdrawal, March 14th. Full amount. Authorization: Gloria A. Whitmore. Transferred to a joint checking account ending in 7,741. My mother's signature at the bottom. Neat cursive. The same handwriting that had signed my permission slips and birthday cards. 2 weeks after that withdrawal, Brianna had closed on her house. I folded the statement, placed it back in the envelope, put it in the top drawer of my desk next to the deed. Then I called Uncle Walt. I read it, and I'm not going to yell, I'm not going to beg. I looked out the window at the valley, city lights scattered like a second set of stars. I'm just going to be ready when the moment comes. That's my girl. Easter is 8 weeks away. Brianna's hosting 25 people. I know. I might need you there. I'll be there. I hung up and washed my tea mug, dried it, and put it away. Easter was 8 weeks out. For the first time in years, I was looking forward to it. Brianna's car sat in my driveway at 2:03 on Saturday. She wasn't moving. She was staring at the house the way you stare at something that doesn't match the picture in your head. She turned off the engine, got out, stood on the driveway with her purse hanging from one hand and her mouth slightly open. I opened the front door. "Hey, come on in, tea's ready." She walked up the stone path. Her heels clicked on the pavers. She stopped in the entryway and looked up. Vaulted ceiling, iron stair railing, the living room through the archway, the wall of glass, the valley. She turned in a slow circle. Her hand went to her mouth. This is your place?" "Yes." "You bought this?" "I did." She walked into the kitchen, touched the granite island, opened a cabinet, closed it, walked to the glass wall, stood there staring at the view. "Nora. Smaller now. How?" "I worked. I was saved. I invested." "But you were renting." "I was. Now I'm not." She stood in my living room for what felt like a full minute without speaking. Then her face did something I hadn't expected. Not anger, not happiness. Confusion raw, disorienting. She pulled out her phone, Her fingers were shaking. She hit the dial. Mom. Her voice cracked. You need to come here right now. You have to see this. I walked to the kitchen and put the kettle on. Would you like sugar in your tea? Gloria arrived in 19 minutes, fast from her neighborhood to the ridgeline on a Saturday. She must have driven like the house was on fire. 2-car doors. My mother's heels on the stone path, fast and sharp. Dale's slower steps behind her. Brianna opened the front door before I could. Gloria stepped into the entryway wearing a lavender cardigan and the pearl earrings she saved for events. She looked up. She stopped. 5 seconds. No sound except whined through the trees outside. What is this? My house, Mom. Welcome. She walked forward, as if the floor might not hold into the living room, touching the back of the couch, looking at the fireplace, the stone mantel, the built-in bookshelves. She walked to the glass wall and stared at the valley. Then, almost automatically the way you straighten a collar before a photograph, she reached over and adjusted a throw pillow on the couch. It didn't need adjusting. It was already centered. She adjusted it anyway, fingers pressing it into shape, finding a corner to fix that wasn't crooked. She didn't notice she'd done it. I noticed. Control was the only language she knew in unfamiliar rooms. But you never said. Her voice was thin. How could you afford? I've been a senior director at my company for a year, Mom. My salary and investments covered it. Senior director? Since when? Since you stopped asking about my job. She turned around. Her face was the color of paper. Dale stood in the doorway. He hadn't moved past the threshold. His eyes were red. His chin was trembling. I'm proud of you, Nora. His voice barely held together. The first time he had said those words to me in my adult life. Gloria spun toward him. Did you know about this? No, I didn't. Then my father did something I had never seen before. He walked across the room and put his arms around me. Gloria stood 3 feet away, outside the embrace, hands at her sides. He held me for a long time. He smelled like sawdust and Old Spice. Same as when I was 10. His hands shook against my back. When he let go, the room had shifted. Brianna was sitting on the edge of the couch, knees pressed together, staring at the floor. Craig had been standing in the kitchen doorway the entire time. He looked at his wife with an expression I recognized. We're going to talk about this later. Then Brianna said the thing that cracked the dam. I don't understand. She looked up at me. How did you save enough? You had massive student loans. Mom said both our funds were lost and yours wasn't lost, Brianna. The room went airless. My $42,000 was withdrawn the March I turned 18, 2 weeks before your down payment cleared. Brianna's mouth opened, closed. It opened again. Her lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. Craig shifted his weight in the doorway. Brianna just kept looking at the bank statement on the table, her finger tracing the numbers without touching the paper. Gloria stood very still by the window, not blinking. Nobody spoke. The kettle clicked off in the kitchen. 5 seconds? 6. 7. Then Brianna turned slowly to Gloria. Mom. Gloria's jaw was tight. Her fingers had found the hem of her cardigan and were twisting it. That's ridiculous. Who told you that nonsense? Someone who was there. Walt. She said his name like a curse. Walt has been trying to tear this family apart for... The front door opened. Everyone turned. Uncle Walt stood in the doorway, wearing a flannel shirt and work boots, hair windblown from the drive. In his right hand, a plain white envelope. He looked at Gloria. She looked at the envelope. For the first time in my life, I watched my mother go completely, utterly silent. Hey, everyone. Walt stepped inside and wiped his boots on the mat. Sorry I'm late. Traffic on the mountain road was a mess. He walked over and placed the envelope gently on the kitchen table, between the teapot and the plate of scones. Nobody touched it. Then I picked it up, unsealed the flap, pulled out the bank statement, and laid it flat on the table. Cascadia Federal Credit Union. My voice was even. Custodial account opened September 2004. Beneficiary, Nora Claire Whitmore. Custodian, Gloria A. Whitmore. I pointed to the bottom of the page. March 14th. $42,380. Full withdrawal. Authorization. Gloria Whitmore. I looked at Brianna. 2 weeks later, your down payment cleared. Brianna stood up, walked to the table, picked up the statement with both hands, and read it. Her lips moved slightly as her eyes tracked the numbers. Somewhere in the kitchen, the faucet at the sink dripped once the renter's faucet, the one I'd had fixed the day I moved in, still finding its rhythm. Mom. Brianna's voice was very small. You told me this was your savings. You told me you and Dad had set it aside. Gloria's face had gone from white to red. Walt, you had no right to keep that. I had every right. Walt's voice was calm. She's my niece. And you lied to her face for 13 years. It was family money. I had the right to allocate. It was in my name, Mom, I said it quietly. The room heard it. A custodial account for my education. Not Brianna's down payment. Dale was sitting now. He'd found a chair by the wall. His head was in his hands. Gloria, his voice came out raw. You told me the fund performed badly. You showed me a statement. She showed you a manufactured summary, Dale. Walt crossed his arms. The real one is right there on the table. Everything I did was for this family, Gloria said. No, Mom. I met her eyes. It was for Brianna. Brianna put the bank statement down. She pressed her palms flat against the table and stared at the wood grain. Mom, she didn't look up. You told me it was your savings. I did what was best. Gloria's voice had shifted higher, faster. Brianna, you needed a house. You were getting married. Nora was always... She stopped. She was always fine on her own. Fine on my own because I had no choice. Brianna looked at me. Her mascara was starting to smudge. I didn't know, Nora. I swear I didn't know. You didn't ask. I kept my voice steady. That's not the same as not knowing. She flinched. Real. She knew I was right. Craig looked at his wife. Brianna, we need to talk about this at home. Craig, please. Your sister built this house. He looked around the room by herself, while your mother told everyone she was broke. Think about that. Brianna pressed her fingers against her eyelids. She was crying now quietly, the way people cry when the tears have been waiting a long time. Dale finally lifted his head. Gloria, you showed me a statement. I saw losses. She showed you a manufactured summary, Dale. Walt's voice was flat. The real account record has her signature on the withdrawal. It's not ambiguous. Dale looked at his wife of 34 years. She looked at the floor. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. Gloria tried one more time. She straightened her spine. Found her voice, the one she used at PTA meetings, at holiday tables, every occasion where she needed to be the authority in the room. After everything I've done for you, I raised you, I fed you, I kept this family together. You raised me. I nodded. That's true, and I'm grateful for the parts that were real. She started to speak. I held up one hand. Just a pause. Just a stop. But you also stole from me, and you lied about it for 13 years. You didn't just take the money. You built a story around why I deserved losing it. And you told that story so often and so well that I almost believed it myself. Those two things can both be true, Mom. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard in my own house. I took a breath. I'm not cutting anyone off. But some things are going to change. I looked at each of them in turn. You don't get to tell people I'm struggling when I'm not. You don't get to define my life to the family. You don't get to rewrite my story so yours sounds better. Gloria's mouth opened. Nothing came out. And if you want to be in this house, I paused. You come as a guest, not as a narrator. The teapot was still warm on the table. The scones sat untouched on their plate. I'm not asking for the money back. I don't need it. I built this without it. But I am asking you to stop lying about who I am. Nobody spoke. I picked up the teapot and filled 2 mugs, set one in front of Brianna, one in front of the empty chair beside her. Tea's getting cold. Gloria, for the first time in my memory, had absolutely nothing to say. The fallout. The story spread the way family stories always spread, not in one conversation, but in the relay of people who each believed they were the first to know. Craig told his sister that evening. His sister told her husband. Brianna, whether she meant to or not, confirmed the details to Aunt Patrice on the phone that night. And once Patrice knew, it might as well have been printed in the newspaper. My phone started ringing Monday morning. Patrice, Gloria told us you were broke. We had no idea, Nora. All these years we believed her. Uncle Dennis. Kid, why didn't you ever say something? Would you have believed me over her? The silence on the other end was its own answer. Cousin Laura texted, I feel sick. I'm sorry for every time I offered you help you didn't need. Over the following week, relatives started calling Gloria. Not to comfort her, to ask questions the kind she couldn't redirect with a laugh or a wave of her hand. Gloria's response was predictable. She blamed Walt. He's always been jealous of this family. He's trying to destroy everything I've built. But there was a bank statement on a kitchen table in the ridgeline with her signature at the bottom. You can't talk your way around ink on paper. One by one, the calls to Gloria stopped. Not with dramatic confrontations, just silence. Patrice didn't invite her to the book club that month. Dennis didn't ask her to organize the 4th of July cookout. Cousin Laura removed Gloria from the family group chat. The one I'd never been added to. My mother lost the one thing she valued more than money. The narrative. For 13 years, she had been the author of every Whitmore family story. Now the family was reading a different version, and they believed it because it was true. Brianna calls. Brianna called 3 days later. I was on the deck watching a red-tailed hawk ride a thermal above the valley. My phone buzzed. I let it ring twice before I answered. Nora. Her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. I keep thinking about that bank statement. Okay. I should have asked where the money came from. A pause. I was 23, and I just wanted the house so badly. Craig and I were getting married, and Mom said she'd been saving for years, and she trailed off. I didn't want to look too closely. I know. I'm sorry, Nora. I'm really, really sorry. Thank you. That matters. A silence. The kind that means something is shifting, even if you can't name it yet. Craig and I talked a lot this week. Her voice steadied slightly. He said he's been watching me treat you the way Mom taught me to. He's right. I see that now. Brianna, I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be honest. She made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. That's the scariest part. Then she said something I didn't expect. Craig almost left me last year. Did you know that? No. Mom was calling every day telling me how to raise Cora, how to decorate the house, what Craig should be doing with his career. Craig said he didn't marry Mom. He married me. And if I couldn't see the difference, he was done. She was quiet. I didn't want to see it, she said, because if I saw it, I'd have to give something back. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The hawk caught another thermal and rose until it was just a dark shape against the pale sky, and then it was gone. Dale comes back. The following Saturday, my doorbell rang. My father. Alone. No Gloria. He was holding a toolbox. Your deck railing looked a little loose when I was here last time. Want me to fix it? If you'll let me. I held the door open. He stepped inside. We didn't talk much that afternoon. He fixed the railing methodical and careful, the way he did everything with his hands. I made coffee. We sat on the deck and watched the light change across the valley. Clouds moving in from the west. He didn't apologize in words. He wasn't built that way. But he showed up with a toolbox, and he fixed the thing that was loose, and he sat on my deck and drank my coffee and looked at my view. She told me the fund had performed badly, he said finally, still looking out at the valley. She showed me something that looked like a statement. I didn't look closely enough. I let that sit. I should have, he said. Yes, he nodded, turned his coffee cup in his hands. I knew something was wrong. I could feel it, but I didn't want to make it worse. Dad. He looked at me. Not making it worse and keeping the peace aren't the same thing. His chin moved. He pressed his lips together and looked back at the valley. No, he said, they're not. We sat there until the light was gone, and the valley below was just a scatter of lights in the dark. He gathered his tools and walked back through my house, with the same careful step he always had. I heard his car back out of the driveway. I stood on the deck for a while. The firs swayed in long, slow arcs. Capable, I thought. That's what she always called me. She wasn't wrong. She just used it like a tool she owned. The promotion. In June, I stood in a conference room on a Tuesday morning while Lena introduced me to the entire company. New title, Vice President of Security Operations. 200 people on the call. 3 offices on the big screen. Nora Whitmore has been the backbone of our security practice for 3 years. She's earned this every single day. People applauded. I thanked them and sat down. My hands were steady. I didn't post about it. I didn't tell my family. Not yet. Some things you hold for yourself first. What Uncle Walt told me. The following weekend, I invited Walt over for dinner. He showed up with a bottle of Pinot Noir and that quiet grin he gets when he's holding something back. We ate on the deck. The sunset turned the valley copper and violet. After dinner, Walt set down his glass and looked at me. Your grandmother would have been proud, Nora. I paused. Grandma Margaret? She's the one who opened that fund. Not your mother. He turned his glass on the table. Margaret started it the year you were born. $50 a month from her Social Security check. She told Gloria to keep it for your education and nothing else. I put my fork down. Mom never told me that. No, she wouldn't have. My grandmother had died when I was 14. I remembered her hands always warm, always smelling faintly of lavender soap. I remembered her saying at every visit, "You're the stubborn one, Nora," like it was the best thing a person could be. I cried then. First time in this entire story. Not from sadness, from knowing that even when nobody in my house was watching out for me, someone had been. From the very beginning, $50 a month from a fixed income, because she believed I would need a foundation and she wanted to make sure it was there. Gloria spent it on Brianna's kitchen. Walt handed me a napkin and didn't say a word. Outside, the valley had gone dark. The lights below looked like stars that had fallen and landed gently. Building something new, Brianna and I started meeting once a month. Neutral Ground, a coffee shop on Division Street with wobbly tables and espresso that could strip paint. The first few times were awkward. Lots of silences, lots of stirring drinks that didn't need stirring. But we kept showing up. She told me about couples therapy with Craig, about learning to hear her own voice instead of Gloria's, about the moment she realized she'd been performing her entire adult life staging her home, curating her social media, measuring her worth by the same ruler our mother had built. I was so busy proving I was the successful one, she said one afternoon, watching rain run down the coffee shop window, that I never asked if I was happy. I didn't have an answer for that, but I listened. Cora, her daughter, sent me a drawing in September crayon, slightly lopsided, our family as stick figures around a tall house on a hill. She'd drawn me at the top. I taped it to my refrigerator with a fruit-shaped magnet. The first time Cora came to my house, she stood in the living room and looked at the view and said, very seriously, "Aunt Nora, your house has a lot of sky." "It does." "I like that." "Me too." She ran to the window and pressed her nose against the glass. She doesn't know any of this yet. She doesn't know the bank statement, or the 13 years, or the Easter dinner, or the phone call on the kitchen floor. She just knows her aunt has a house with a lot of sky, and she likes it. That felt like the right place to start. Gloria's letter. In September, a letter arrived. No return address I recognized. Inside, a single page. My mother's handwriting, the same neat cursive that was on the bank withdrawal form. "Nora, I made choices that weren't mine to make. I'm trying to understand why. I don't know if I can explain it, but I'm trying. Mom." No grand apology. Just an opening small and uncertain, like a crack in a wall. I read it twice. I folded it carefully, put it in the top drawer of my desk, next to the deed and the bank statement. 3 documents in a drawer. What was taken, what replaced it, and what might come next. She hadn't asked for anything. That was new. I didn't call her, but I didn't throw the letter away. I sat at the scarred maple table for a while after. The first moved outside. The house was quiet around me. I thought about the woman who had sat up until midnight painting Saturn's rings on a papier-mâché solar system so her 9-year-old would wake up to something finished. I thought about the woman who had signed a withdrawal form and watched me cry over money she had already spent. Both of those women existed. And they were the same person. That's the hardest thing, not the theft, not the 13 years of lies, but the fact that neither version cancels out the other. You carry both. You carry the braided hair in the kitchen at midnight and the loan paperwork the next morning. You carry the birthday card 2 days late and the spelling bee she stayed up for. You learn eventually to hold both, without letting either one erase what's true. Some doors you don't slam. You just don't open them until you're ready. The 8 weeks. A week later, Brianna invited me to Thanksgiving. "You don't have to come, but I'd like you there." "Will Mom be there?" "Yes." I thought about it for exactly 1 day. "I'll come, but I'm driving myself and I'll leave when I'm ready." That's fair. It was. For the first time, it actually was. I want to tell you something about the 8 weeks between the Easter dinner and the Saturday I opened my door. 8 weeks of going to work every morning and managing a team of 9 people and updating a spreadsheet every Friday night. 8 weeks of letting my mother think I was struggling, of not correcting her, of picking up her Sunday calls and answering the ones that needed answering, and letting the rest go to voicemail. People ask me sometimes, wasn't that painful? Yes and no. It was painful. The way holding something sharp is painful. You're very aware of exactly where it is. Every family call, Every time Gloria mentioned what she'd heard from Patrice, or what Brianna was planning, I felt it. That knowledge sitting right there, edged. But I had made a decision that night on the kitchen floor. Confrontation gives liars a stage. I had spent 13 years watching my mother redirect, deny, and reframe. I knew exactly how a confrontation with Gloria Whitmore ended. She cried. The family rallied. I became the difficult one. The narrative closed around her again, airtight. The only thing that breaks a narrative like that is a fact she can't redirect. A bank statement with her own signature. A house on a hill with her daughter's name on the deed. Those are not things you can redirect. You can try. But the house stays there, on the hill, with or without her commentary. So for 8 weeks I held the sharp thing carefully and kept going to work and drove home on Friday evenings to a house with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that went for miles. And I sat in that house alone. There were nights when the silence got loud, when I drove home from a family dinner and sat in my car in the driveway for a few minutes before I went inside, just to let the noise settle. When I picked up my phone and almost called Walt to say, I don't know if I can do this for 8 more weeks. When I scrolled past Brianna's kitchen photos on social media and felt the particular sting of watching someone live comfortably inside a lie that cost me a decade. That night, I opened the spreadsheet. I looked at the income column. I looked at the savings column. I looked at the target. The target hadn't changed. It was still just a number. But looking at it meant looking at the thing that was real. The thing that existed regardless of what anyone in my family believed about me or said about me or told Aunt Patrice about me at the grocery store. The spreadsheet was always true. My mother's story about me was not. That difference was the thing I held onto on the 8-week nights when holding it was hard. And I was fine. Not Gloria's fine. Not the fine that means she doesn't need anything, she'll manage, she's always been so capable. My own fine. The kind that means, I am here, I built this, I know exactly what I have, and I know exactly what was taken from me, and I chose deliberately, patiently, the time and the place, and the way it would come out. That's a different kind of capability. The problem was never. I'm sitting in my living room right now, telling you this story. The fire's going. There's a cup of coffee on the side table that's gone lukewarm because I've been talking to you for a while. Outside, the valley is gray-green under low clouds, and the firs are doing that slow sway they do when the wind can't decide which direction to blow. The problem was never that I was capable. The problem was that everyone got comfortable treating capable people like it meant I didn't need anything. My mother measured my worth in what I lacked. My sister measured it in comparison. My father measured it by keeping the peace, which, it turns out, isn't the same as keeping anyone safe. And me? For a long time, I measured it in silence. The kind of silence that builds things nobody sees coming. I don't hate my mother. Hate is heavy, and I've been carrying enough. I don't hate Brianna either. She's trying clumsily, imperfectly. That counts. What I stopped doing was waiting. Waiting for them to see me. Waiting for them to give me permission to be proud of what I'd built. Waiting for the version of my mother who would look at my life and say, I was wrong. I built something they couldn't ignore. Not to punish them. Not to prove them wrong. Because I deserved a life that wasn't written by someone else. I think about what it cost. The student loans I paid for 10 years. The apartments were too small. The groceries I tracked to the dollar. The spreadsheet I updated on Friday nights, while my mother told Aunt Patrice that she worried about me. I think about what it would have been worth, if it had been there. $55,000, conservatively. A foundation, a start. But I also think about what the absence produced. Not having it meant I learned the spreadsheet. It meant I took the ugly hospital audit because I had to be visible and had no other way in. It meant I drove through neighborhoods alone on Saturday mornings, learning what I actually wanted, not what I'd been handed. There is a particular kind of person who is forged by the things that weren't given to them. Not because scarcity is good. It isn't. It costs. It leaves marks. But there is a certain kind of clarity that comes from building something with your own hands, in your own time, by your own math, a clarity about exactly what you did and exactly what it is worth, that you can never get from something you were handed. You know every number. You know every month it took. You know the exact Friday night. You adjusted the target column upward and set your alarm for 6 the next morning. You know what it is made of. No one can tell you otherwise. Not even your mother. My grandmother started putting money away for me the year I was born. She did it for 14 years. She never told me. She trusted Gloria to tell me when the time came. Gloria spent it on Brianna's kitchen. But my grandmother was right that I would need a foundation. Right to start early. Right to keep records. Right to put my name on it. She just picked the wrong person to hold it. I found my own way to do what she started. It took longer. It cost more. But the line at the bottom of the spreadsheet still says okay. I did it by myself. Not because I had to. Because I could. The spreadsheet. I still have it. The one I built at 2 a.m. on the cold kitchen floor, the night Uncle Walt told me the truth. 3 columns. Income. Savings. Target. When I signed the mortgage documents, I opened it on my phone right there in the title office while the agent made a copy of my ID. The target column had a number at the top, the one that had felt like a wall the night I first typed it. That cold November, the dripping faucet, the pilot light going out behind my ribs. I looked at it for a long time. Then I typed 2 letters. Ok. Closed the app, put the phone in my pocket. I walked out into the parking lot with the key warm in my hand. The spreadsheet wasn't a revenge plan. It wasn't a declaration. It was just a record, the most honest record I had of what I needed and what I was willing to do to get there. Line by line, month by month, updated on the nights when the noise from my family's version of my life got loud enough to make me doubt my own. 3 things. 3 things I learned the hard way. 1. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's strategy. The loudest response I ever gave my family was a house on a hillside and a teapot on the table. I didn't argue. I just let the results arrive. 2. You don't owe anyone a confrontation, but you owe yourself the truth. The bank statement didn't fix everything, but it meant nobody could rewrite my story again. Truth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to exist in a drawer, in ink, with a signature at the bottom. 3. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with better locks. My mother can knock. She can even come in sometimes if she's willing to come as a guest and not as the narrator. The front door to this house has a deadbolt that I paid for, on a door I chose, in a home I earned. But the best part isn't the house. The best part is that I'm the one who decides who gets the key. Lingering. The week after the tea, after Gloria went silent, and the bank statement sat on the table, and Dale held me in my own living room for the first time in my adult life. Brianna drove home in the dark with the windows fogged over. From her crying, she told me this later. She said she sat in her own driveway for 11 minutes before she went inside. Craig didn't say anything when she came in. He just handed her a glass of water and sat with her at the kitchen table while she thought out loud. She said she kept looking at her kitchen, the white quartz countertops, the brass fixtures, and thinking about where the money came from, who it was supposed to belong to, what she had accepted without looking. She stopped posting pictures of it. Not dramatically, not with an announcement. She just stopped. 1 week, no photo, then 2. Then a month, and nobody commented, and she realized nobody had been waiting for those pictures the way she thought they were. She'd been performing for an audience that had already moved on. My mother called on a Thursday evening 3 weeks after everything. I was making dinner roasted chicken, rosemary potatoes. I answered on the 4th ring. Nobody calls me anymore. Stripped of the usual polish. Patrice won't return my messages. Dennis told me he needs space. That's not my doing, Mom. I just wanted Brianna to have a good start. At my expense. Without telling me. Without asking. A long silence. I thought you'd never find out. I turned down the stove. Leaned against the counter. That's the part that hurts the most, Mom. Not the money. The fact that you were comfortable lying to me forever. I could hear her breathing quick and shallow. The way you breathe when you're trying not to cry. Can we just go back to normal? No, but we can go forward, if you're willing to be honest. She didn't respond for a long time. Through the phone, I could hear the clock in her kitchen, the one that had hung over the stove my entire childhood. Same ticket had always had. I don't know how, she finally said. I closed my eyes. That's the first honest thing you've said to me in 13 years. She hung up. I finished making dinner. The kitchen here is quiet. No dripping faucet. No rattling window. Just wind in the trees and the sound of my own life, finally belonging to me. The following Saturday, my doorbell rang. My father. Alone. Toolbox in hand. Same as before. There's a cabinet hinge in the guest room that squeaks. Want me to look at it? If you'll let me, I said. He smiled. Very small. He stepped inside. He's been coming on Saturdays. We don't talk much. He fixes things. I make coffee. We sit on the deck and watch the valley until the light changes. It isn't much, but he's there. And he keeps showing up. Some foundations you don't pour all at once. The firs outside are moving again tonight. That slow sway they do when the wind comes from the west. The fires burn down to coals. My coffee is cold. Cora's crayon drawing is on the refrigerator. 3 documents are in the top drawer of my desk. Some were in my grandmother's handwriting before she was sick. Before any of this, there's probably a note that doesn't exist anymore. Something she slipped to someone, some instruction she trusted would be followed. She believed that whoever I became, I would deserve a foundation. She was right. It just took a little longer to arrive. And it looked nothing like what she planned. It looked like a spreadsheet on a cold kitchen floor at 2 in the morning. It looked like 12-hour days and meal-prepped chicken and index funds I pretended didn't exist. It looked like a scarred maple table and 2 ceramic mugs and a teapot I didn't pick up until the moment was right. It looked like me. If your family ever called you capable while quietly giving everything to someone else, type capable. And tell me, what did they take from you while praising how well you handled it? Or type deed, if you know what it's like to build something real in silence, and then watch the room go quiet when it finally shows up. Because some of us learned very young that no one was keeping our records. So we kept our own.